All right, let's just dive right in. When we talk about ancient texts like the New Testament, our minds usually jump to the big stuff, right? The theology, the history, the grand stories. But what if the deepest secrets aren't in the big picture at all? What if they're hidden in the tiniest details, in the individual words themselves? Today, we're basically going to be linguistic detectives, peeling back the layers of time and translation to get to the original Greek.
I mean, that's the real challenge, isn't it? You're talking about a gap of 2,000 years, massive cultural shifts, and of course, a completely different language. Every version you and I read is a translation. It's an interpretation. So how in the world do we get closer to what the original authors actually wrote? Well, the answer is you have to go small. You start with the most basic building block you can find, a single word. See, when you start analyzing vocabulary, the specific word choices, the unique patterns, a whole new dimension just opens up. It's kind of like archaeology, but for language. Now, to do this kind of work, you obviously need the right tool. And it's not a shovel or a pickaxe. It's a key that can unlock this ancient language. And for scholars, for generations, that key has been a very, very special kind of dictionary. This is it, a Greek-English lexicon of the New Testament. Now, I know it just looks like a book cover, but try to think of it less like a simple dictionary and more like a super powerful piece of analytical software from the 1800s. It doesn't just give you definitions. It meticulously catalogs, sorts, and analyzes the entire vocabulary of the New Testament. And what's so cool is how it breaks everything down. Tucked away in the appendix of this thing is this amazing roadmap. It sorts all the Greek words into these distinct categories that show you not just what the words mean, but where they came from and who was using them. We're going to look at 3 of these layers. First, borrowed words. These are words the writers literally nabbed from other cultures. Then, biblical significations. This is when they take a common word and give it a special new meaning. And finally, the most exciting part, words that are totally unique to individual writers. So, first up, the borrowed words. This is so important because it reminds us that the New Testament wasn't written in a vacuum, you know? The authors were living in this big, multicultural world, and their language is a direct reflection of that. They were pulling in words from all over the place. They borrowed a ton from Hebrew, which makes total sense, but also from Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, the occupying force. And they even pulled words from other languages, like Persian and Egyptian. Every single borrowed word is like a little breadcrumb, a clue that leads back to a real, tangible cultural interaction. Now for the second layer. This is where things get really clever. Sometimes the writers didn't need to borrow a word. They just gave an old word a brand new job. They'd take a perfectly normal Greek word and pack it with a specific theological meaning it never had before. That's a biblical signification. And this is just a brilliant illustration of how language gets adapted for a specific purpose. A word that meant one thing on the streets of ancient Athens could mean something totally different and way more profound to the early Christian community. The lexicon tracks all of this, showing us that the writers weren't just using language, they were actively shaping it. Okay, let's move to that third layer, because this is where we really find the human element. This is where we can see the distinct individual voices of the authors themselves. See, if you analyze which words are unique to each writer, you start to see something amazing emerge, a kind of literary fingerprint. So let's take 2 heavyweights, Paul and Peter. We know they had different missions, different audiences, and totally different styles. Paul was the theologian, writing these long, complex letters. Peter was a core leader in Jerusalem, writing more direct, pastoral stuff. You'd expect their language to be different, right? Well, yes, absolutely. And you can literally see it on these pages from the lexicon. On the left, you've got a partial list of words that only, and I mean only, appear in the writings of Paul. And on the right, a list of words that only appear in Peter's letters. They are 2 completely different lists. They are distinct linguistic profiles. It's undeniable. And the scale of this is just staggering. Get this. The Apostle Paul alone used 831 words that are found nowhere else in the entire New Testament. Think about that for a second. That's a massive, unique vocabulary. It's a clear, authorial fingerprint stamped right onto the text. So what's the big deal? Why does this matter? Why would anyone spend so much time counting words and tracking vocabulary? Well, because it takes us from seeing the text as this flat, monolithic thing to something much more vibrant and much more human. An author's word choice tells us so much. It can hint at their education, their personal background, what ideas were most important to them. Most of all, it lets us hear the different human voices, the voice of Matthew, the voice of Luke, the voice of Paul, all contributing their unique angle to the whole thing. So, the bottom line is this. These words are way more than just words. They're data points. Every single writer has a unique linguistic DNA, and a tool like this lexicon actually lets us map it out. We can see the texture and the diversity right there in the text itself.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've seen that language can act as a fingerprint, right? It can identify the unique human author behind the words. But unlike a fingerprint left at a crime scene, this one isn't just evidence of something that happened in the past. It's a living mark that continues to shape belief, history, and culture 2,000 years later. So if language is a fingerprint, what does it really leave behind?